Greetings duelists and welcome to another video. So this is Deck Report week number 7 if I'm not mistaken. We are already second week after Radio the Abyss, and I'm back with the Fire King deck. So for those who have not seen my last video, the one with the Valence showcase, I have a regional in 2 weeks, and my goal right now is to pick up a deck or strategy for that event that I feel very comfortable with. Fire Kings is a deck that is close to that criteria, and I do have an issue. Right now, the issue that I have with the deck is not the matchups. I feel like against every deck in the game right now, I feel very comfortable once this deck's engine gets started, because Fire Kings have really strong engine trades with other decks in the format. And we're now in a format where mid-range strategies are now a lot stronger or a lot more popular, which gives Fire Kings an advantage. Right now, one of the best decks in the format, or the best deck in the format, is a deck that is a variant of Fire Kings. I have spoken about that in this channel before. My issue with the Snake Eye and Azamina cards is they do not trade well with the current non-engine that people are playing right now. Ash Blossom, Dominance Impulse, Draw Lockbird, those are 3 really big cards right now. And Dimension Shifter is also another big one, but not every deck can play it. Your deck needs to play well against 3 of those 4 cards. If it cannot do that, you're going to struggle in a lot of duels right now. And I feel like the Fire King deck does that very well without the Azamina cards. The problem is, without playing that other engine, I'm breaking with the deck a lot more than I kind of wanted to. So right now, my main struggle is finding an engine that can fit the criteria I mentioned beforehand, but also synergize well with the Fire King cards. I think I found 1 or 2 solutions, but for now I'll just showcase you the deck list. I did make some notable changes from last week, and then I'll explain everything afterwards. 3 Ponics, 3 Volcanics, 3 Kirin, 2 Garunics, 1 OG Garunics, 1 Arvata, 1 Baron, 1 Rambali. That's all the Fire King monsters. If I'm not mistaken, I think that's 15. We have 3 Ash Blossoms, and there's a new addition to the deck that I put in last week, and I will explain it very soon. But it's 3 Rescue Ace Impulse and 1 Fire Attacker. We're still on 3 Sanctuary, we're still on 2 Island, we're on Skyburn. We dropped talents down to 1. I will explain that. And we have now Small World and 1-for-1, Called By, and Prosperity. As for the traps, it's the same 7 traps you saw last week. So that's the main deck. Is 40 cards exact. For the extra deck, Anima, SP, IP, Hita, Phoenix, Dark. I will probably be cutting this soon. I don't know why there's a glare, but we'll continue. Promethean Princess, Amblo Whale, Phoenix, and Zelantis. I did resolve the Zelantis OTK this past weekend. Dweller, Baguska, Infection King, Dingirsu, and Garunix, Sacred Garunix. Cosmic, Dark Ruler. This is a really cool tech. I'll probably make a video on this someday, but 3 shared ride, 3 draw Lovebird, and 3 dimensional barrier. Okay, explanation time. Let's start with the main deck. So alongside Prosperity, we now have Small World and Non-1-for-1 as consistency cards. Like I said last week, I was breaking a lot with the deck, and to a point where I didn't find it very favorable for me to play the game without proper engine starters. So I needed to play more cards that just let me play the game. I have not drawn Small World ever since I placed it in the main deck. However, I did draw 1-for-1 a couple of times, and there were 2 instances where the 1-for-1 actually saved me from unbreaking. Sadly, there was one duel where this did get Ash Blossomed, and it almost lost me the duel. The replacements for the 2 consistency cards were 2 copies of Talents. So I pretty much told myself that if I'm going to be breaking with this deck, I want to break with as many non-engine cards that are live to trade with my opponent as possible. Triple Talents does not do that. If you're breaking and you have Triple Talents is just another dead card. Triple Talents is only workable in an environment where you have good non-engine traits with your opponent. I did not want to cut the card entirely because there are a lot of people that are playing into this card. People are not respecting Talents this format. Like, I've seen people do Dimension Shifter in the main phase. I've seen people do 4 loss after your opponent commits a summon. I've seen a lot of people do that, and those people easily get punished by Talents. However, I am sadly in a position where Talents makes my better hands, like, if I'm playing the game and I'm resolving Talents, I'm winning. But if I'm losing the game and I'm resolving Talents, I'm in a very desperate position. So depends whether or not I keep breaking with the deck. I might switch this out for another consistency card, but for now I'm okay with the 1-1 ratio alongside the cold buy. So let's talk about Impulse. The Impulse engine. I guess you can call this deck Impulse Fire Kings now, since we have 6 Impulse cards now. So this is another card that also plays you the game. So I wanted, when I took Draw out of the main deck, I wanted to play another hand trap that was going to be functionable in multiple ways. The Rescue Ace Impulse serves the purpose of not only unbreaking your hands, but capitalizing on your opponent's resources. The other thing that Impulse does for us is that it is a fire monster. So you can pop it with Volcanics, you can pop it with the Fire King Island. You can try to contest the board and use Kirin as a catalyst for this. So that's what I liked about this engine. Obviously, drawing Impulse Attacker does suck, and it has happened to me a couple of times. But I think the payoff of this card warrants the spot in the main deck. So that's it for the main deck. I think there are no other real changes here. So let's go with the extra deck. So these are all the same. The Zolantis package also has not changed. I do have Amblo Whale now. Shoutouts to Ramon. Shoutouts to all the people who have slendered me cards so far. But yeah, Amblo Whale made a really big difference now. The main difference with Amblo Whale is that now our end boards could be crafted with more interruptions. So something that I like doing now is that I go, whenever I have 3 monsters on the board, which is very easy in this deck, I go IP into Promethean Princess, and the Promethean Princess into Amblo Whale, and whenever I trigger Amblo Whale's graveyard effect, I just reborn the SP, and that becomes another interruption. It's very similar to the Flamberge line, but a little bit less resilient. But I rather trade that resiliency if it means playing around non-engine a lot more. So I do really like this package. I don't think this will change anytime soon. Hita, Phoenix. I have been in the situation where I have to IP for Phoenix because of Promethean Princess. So that is also very helpful. The Dark Charmer, I don't know how I feel about this card. I've only summoned it once. And the situation where I did summon this, I did summon Hita. I also had Hita as an option. So I might take this out. Most likely it's going to be on the Rogue Goddess. SP and Anima. As far as rank 8s go, I think I cut the Hope Heartbringer from the deck. Shoutouts to like everybody in my locals, or everybody in Tower Games as well. I had people who just told me to just try to change a few of these cards, and Hope Heartbringer was just a card that did not contribute to my win condition the right way. So yeah, I think this extra deck is perfectly fine. These cards, these 2 rank 4s are almost perfect. It helps deal with almost every matchup in the game. Again, like I mentioned earlier, like I faced against 4 Snake Eye Azamina decks this past weekend, and the matchup is really not that hard. And cards like these like help you in the game because these are really strong interruptions, or cards are strong floodgates that you can just summon with wasting minimal resources. So yeah. Let's talk about the side deck. So Dimensional Barrier is now in my side deck. I think this card is very mandatory now. Like between Tempai Dragons and Centurion running around, this just shuts down all the synchro decks. You can trade well into Yubel with this card also. If you see somebody playing both Fiendsmith and Azamina as part of their engine, you can also play this card to just shut down the fusion monsters. So I don't regret this decision. I'm no longer playing Droll in the main deck, but I think Droll should be somewhere in your deck. So that's my logic behind Droll. Dark Ruler and Cosmic. I used to play massive board removal earlier, but those are not necessary in this deck. This deck trades really well against floodgates with this engine. Like, again, the engine of this deck plays around almost everything I wanted to. But there are those fringe mashups in those cards that are hard to get rid of. Like Runic Fountain is one good example. So this card is really good for punishing that. It also punishes Labyrinth players that try to play on your turn. Like, I've had a lot of people try to do the Cool Clock big Labyrinth setup, and that play auto loses to Cosmic. So between Cosmic, Impulse, and Ash Blossom, you shouldn't be losing against Labyrinth with this deck. Especially since the Fire King engine trades very well into the Labyrinth engine as well. But yeah, I mainly just have this for rogue decks, like those, and specifically Runic Fountain. The last card I want to talk about is Shared Ride. So, if you are a budget player and you don't own more Charmy cards, but you want to find an option to like push your opponent into a position, in an awkward position when playing their engine, this is the next best card. Think about more Charmy, but for spell cards. That's the best way to explain this card. If your opponent is playing the Azamina engine, this card trades very well into them because they're probably adding at least 3 cards, so you're getting at least 3 draws out of it. Against the Tenpai deck, you also put them in a very awkward spot. Let's say, for example, you play against Tenpai and you have these 2 cards set, and they summon Pydra. If they summon Pydra and they want to play on this card, they need to set Sangen Summoning. And if they set Sangen Summoning, you get rid of it with the Cosmic Cyclone. Or if you don't have the Cosmic Cyclone, this also trades well into a Sangen Summoning, because if they activate the Sangen Summoning to just add, that's a 1 draw out of this card. And then if they activate Sangen Kaimen, that's another draw out of this card. And I have seen players misplay into this card by just adding Sangen Summoning with Pydra. So yeah, against that deck is really, really strong. This card is also really good against Yubel. Like, right now, against every meta deck in the format, this card is really, really powerful. Yeah. So that's about it for my deck report. Like I said, right now, so I went to 2 locals this weekend, and I went X2 on both locals, and every single loss I had in the rounds, except for 1 because I arrived late. So 3 losses in total with this deck in the entire weekend against probably like 10 decks, and all 3 losses were because I bricked. So that's good news in terms of the deck's performance. I think the deck, like, if it doesn't brick, you're going to do just fine. However, that does mean I am breaking enough times with this deck, and that is very, very, very unfortunate. Like, I'm very in a strong position right now because I don't want to play the Azamina engine, but I don't think there's a choice, because I bricked with this deck way too much for it to matter. But yeah, that's it from me. I hope you found this video informative to your liking and understanding. Keep practicing and keep dueling.